Welcome to the second of our videos on center of gravity location. So you think about center of gravity, it's obviously very important. The plane needs to be balanced in order to fly, and you don't want it nosing down, and especially if you get the low airspeed and you've got limited elevator, it might be very difficult to control a plane. And even worse, if the weight is too far back, the thing becomes uncontrollable, very unstable, wants to twist around, go every which way, and so you got some very significant problems. So what we're going to be doing is going beyond the just simple, well, go to the root of the wing, go a quarter to a third of the way back, stick your fingers under there, and hope that it balances, in the right spot. We're going to actually be working through a matter of working out where the center of the geometrical center of the wing is, and figure that that's a good estimate for where the center of the lift is going to be located out from the center line, and then be working on that as to how far back to have the center of gravity. Now, as you think about that, we'll be having a separate video on this particular plane. This is a E-Flight P-51 1.2 meter. But in particular, on this plane, the manual is saying to have it right there, plus or minus 3 millimeters. So you won't see the mark on the video there, but just a tiny little envelope that they're saying where it needs to be. And where I'm figuring it needs to be is someplace between here and here. We've got about 3/4 of an inch between there and there. And even the farthest, most forward one doesn't come up to that envelope where they say it ought to be. And as you look at the videos about this plane and what goes on, you see that it's got some real issues in landing, of running out of elevator, and it means that you have to come in quite fast on the landing. You can't glide it in, and it's got severe problems that way. And in the video on the plane, I go through a number of modifications that I made to this particular one. But with today's video, we'll be looking at the balance point. And not just for this plane, we'll be looking at our high wing planes as well. And working out very precisely where technically it ought to be. Of course, once you find out where technically it ought to be, we recognize, as in our previous video, that wing profiles will vary according to how the lift is produced and the various dynamics of what happened with it. So things are going to be different from one plane to another. But we want to have a decent place to get started before we first have that maiden flight. And then with a maiden flight, yeah, it'll be flyable, and we might realize, okay, we want to make a little adjustment this way or that way. That's all normal and it's fine, but at least we got it up there in a condition to where it's got reasonable flight characteristics. And I expect that that's what we'll be able to do. So, keep tuned, and we'll show you the details of how we go about this and the rig that we set up, the jigs, and all of that to work out those locations. Well, let's begin with a couple of assumptions and a premise. Well, first off, as you think about a wing, this one in particular, you've got this leading edge that comes way forward at the start and then right back in. The typical approach of measuring at the root of the wing, a third to a quarter of the way back to find the proper center of gravity location, is going to really get thrown off with this thing having this last minute jig in the front of the wing as compared to just going in straight. It's going to be very different out here than what it is in there. So as to just an assumption as to where we ought to be measuring a third back, I figure that the geometrical center of this area is going to be pretty close to the center of the lift that's produced by the wing. There's going to be a lot of lift that's produced in this large area here near the root, Of course, that's going to get, because it's a larger area, that will tend to, bring it in. Smaller amount out here due to its small profile and all of that. That has less weight because less area. So I think the geometrical center is going to be a good place to figure that that is the spot where we ought to pick a chord going through there to measure a quarter to a third back to work out where we ought to balance it. Now, as you think about how we're going to do that, you could visit your local high school and ask the geometry teacher to do some sort of a calculation for you. And I'm sure he or she could do that. But I'm more into strings and little stands and things like that. And I've actually got a way that you can work it out without needing to go back to your geometry class in school. And essentially what you do is by taking the length of the chord of the wing at the edge of the fuselage, at the root of the wing, you take that and you add that onto the ends of the wing out here to come to get 2 points, one there and one down here. And then you do the opposite for the other end. You take the length of the chord out here at the wingtip and you add that in on each end of the chord at the edge of the fuselage. And then that's defined 4 points where we can put little stands and run strings across, crisscross across there. And where they cross, that's going to be the center of lift. Well, it's a geometrical center, and we're going to say it's the center of lift. And then as we pick that chord that goes through the center of lift, that chord is going to be what we use to work our 25% to 33% back. So that's what we're going to do. As to why it's important, I've already mentioned that it's going to be very different as to whether you do it at the chord of the wing or whether you do it at the geometrical center. These dark points here and up there, those are where the 1/3 of the way back would be, with the leading edge being the top of the drawing and the trailing edge being the bottom. And you can see that's significantly different for this particularly shaped wing. And this isn't anything terribly unusual. So it'd be important to work that out. So we're going to show you how to do it. And whether you actually go through this or whether you just get a rough idea of what to do from this and act accordingly, that'll be up to you. But I think it'll be a very helpful exercise to show you what we have done and what the results have been on a couple of our planes. Well, I've been busy in my workshop. And here I got these little stands built. So you got a block of wood with a notch in it like so. We've got this piece of aluminium extrusion. It would have come from a some sort of a track for, I don't know if it was a door or window or just what it was, but just something I had lying around. I've drilled and tapped a hole for a set screw in the side, and that allows this piece of timber to go in and out so that I can change the length of it like that, and then tighten up the screw to hold it tight. Got a little nail in the top of it, and then you'll see when we go to use it that that's how we get the string across to find the center of lift for the wings. So all good. One possibility is you could put a larger piece of wood underneath this to give it a little bit more stability, but I think this is going to be meeting the basic need. So we'll see how we go with it. We got the 4 of them, and we're ready to go. Okay, we've now got the Ranger set up, and you can see my tight spaces that I have to work in here. So you may have a lot better than I do. But nonetheless, we found enough floor space to do what we need to do. So we've got our stand set up. So you've got the 200 mil here and here, which is the chord of the wing back at this end. And out this way, You've got the, whatever the chord was at the root of the wing. Got that here, and you've got that out there. So we've sighted down and we've made a mark as to where the center of the wing is, right about there. So that's the center of the area. Then we've also got this secondary string going across the trailing edge, because the trailing edge has a kink in it. I suppose even the leading edge looks like it has a tiny bit of a kink in it as well. So it's hard to know how precise to get. But I've run that string along there to try and equalize the area of the gap with the overlap in the area of a gap, to try and come up with an average of where the trailing edge is, so that when we work out our 25% and 33%, that it'll be from a consistent thing. Then we're going to have a look and see how it compares at the center of area with doing the same calculation at the root. And so it'll be an interesting exercise to work that out. Okay, so we're going to use our scrap paper technique again for working out the balance point of the wing. So we're going to take that, we're going to put this at the leading edge, and then I've got my yellow string down here that marks the average of where the trailing edge is, and I'm marking right underneath that. Okay, so I'm going to chop that off right there. Okay, it's got that cut off, so now I'm going to take it and fold it in half. Fold it in half again. That's our quarter marks, 25%. Now we want to do it in thirds. Fold it over like so. Work it around to get to where all three are equal. Right about there. Okay, and that then gives us 2 marks. Let's use the clear side here. And so I'm going to just put a little pencil mark on one and a little pencil mark on the other one. There and there are the 2 spots. So I now take that to the wing, line it up with both the leading and the trailing edge. Okay, and then I mark on the tape that I stuck on the wing 2 spots. So I've got a spot here, and I've got a spot there. Now, for argument's sake, I'm wondering what it's going to be if we do that at the root. And by the way, we're doing it on the bottom of the wing because when we go to balance it, that's going to be more stable and give us a better outcome. Okay, so we're going to stick this up here. Okay, now, for this one, I'm going to ignore this string. I'm going to do it as if we didn't have all the fancy setup, and we just simply were doing it based on what we could see in the normal world, where we haven't done all of this precise measuring. Once I come down here, I mark the trailing edge. Okay. Let's cut that off. Okay, we then take this piece of paper and we do the same sort of thing. We fold it in half, fold it in half again, unfold it, put it in thirds. And that looks pretty good. Okay. Anyway, we got that one right. Okay. So now we put it at the root of the wing, all lined up. Put a mark where the 2 balance point is, the 25% and the 33%. So we got those marked. Now, I'm curious as to how well that matches up with that. Okay, that looks pretty square. And I got this edge here on the back mark. Putting that up there. And it is interesting that there's a significant difference. The 33% mark at the root of the wing is here, and the one that I've calculated based on the center of area of the wing is there. So both would probably be flyable. But the next question will be is where is the actual balance point? So we'll get it turned upside down and we'll check that out. In working out our balance point, we're not going to use our fingers to just put under the wing to balance it, but rather our little stands here have got a dual purpose. Of course, we got the stand that we showed you before that we've cobbled together with some bits and pieces that we had lying around, and we've made a little piece to go on top of it. It has a hole in it. Kind of hard for you to see that there. Yeah, there you go, little hole there, and the hole is for the little nail on the end of that. So you just put that up there. That allows it to follow the contour of the wing, whichever way it is. I made it a little bit longer just in case you've got a balsa plane that you've got ribs and you don't want to go poking a hole through the covering, so it gives a little bit longer. And of course, as long as it's perpendicular to the central axis of the plane, it won't make any difference in terms of the balance. So we're going to have the plane on the stand, put these underneath it. With a plane on the stand, it's going to keep it nice and safe, so it's not going to fall off, but we'll still be able to see where it balances. So that's next. Well, we're now all set up with our weight and balance rig, and we've got all set up on the stands. And as we look underneath, it'll be hard for you to see, but I've got it right between the 25% and the 33% mark, with the things all lined up. And it's a good thing we've got nice tall stands, because with it on the big stand, that's the kind of height that you need. And as it turns out, as we look at the plane, it's just balancing nicely on there. So that is exactly in the middle of the two recommended points, and this plane flies absolutely beautifully. You know, it will just glide, and it's as tame can be as far as planes go. So that certainly demonstrates that point is a good point. I did some more careful measuring as to where the point was at the root and where the point was out in the center of the area. And on this particular wing, I mean, it was only 5 mil difference, you know. So it wouldn't make a real big difference, but nonetheless, I think out there in the center of area would be the ideal place to be setting this up. So here's the battery we're using. We have it placed all the way forward in the bay there. And you'll notice that with FMS, they had actually planned on you having the battery farther back. So if you look at their straps, this is their strap and that's their strap. And I've put Velcro there, and it would have it back there, but we want it all the way forward. And bringing it all the way forward meant I only had one strap. I was also a bit concerned about the thingamabobby for controlling the motor, in that you've got the servo for the nose gear right under it, and I didn't really want that sitting on there. So I decided to put this strap under there, then have it wrap around this bit of plywood, thin plywood, and then with new Velcros on there to hold the battery in the forward position. So this Velcros down to those existing places, and new spots for Velcroing it on farther forward with the two straps that can go around it. And while we've got it open, I'll just show you something else that I did. This was starting, when we put it in, it was starting to lift up a little bit on the back. So I've just glued a bit of foam onto there. Just cut it to the right shape, did a bit of measuring, and that holds that in quite nicely when we've got it in place. So there you go. I was just a little bit concerned I didn't want that popping off, and if that popped off, the whole thing would leave. And we don't want that, do we? Well, I trust that this has been helpful to you, and you can go out and make yourself some stands and do the same type of thing yourself. Or what you might want to do is, realizing that it's not terribly precise anyway, is just to realize, don't go to the chord of the wing. Get a rough idea of where the geometrical center of the wing is and do your measurement there, and you're going to be pretty close, you know, even if you don't use all the strings and things like that. So that should get you going, and going quite well.